Good day traders, welcome to this week's RMD Weekly Market Overview. Last week was a hectic week on the markets with lots of volatility and a week ending with many breakouts from very important levels. So today we will look at some of these breakout opportunities, including 3 inverted head and shoulder setups. I'm going to let the disclaimer roll and I will see you back in the charts. We start this week's analysis again with the US dollar to South African rand. Last week saw price retest the monthly pivot at 1668. That was also an area where it met up with resistance from the 4-hour 100 as well as the 4-hour 200 SMA. And it once again got rejected from this level and are currently trading below support with the monthly S1 pivot. That's the one we have here at 1610. And now an even more likely target to be hit. And that is because we are also now trading below this lower diagonal resistance which we saw. And as we can see on Friday, we had a move back into that level and then a rejection. And that's why I'm saying that this is a very likely target at this stage. Also, just take note that the first area of support would then now be the weekly S1 pivot at 1627. So there might be some initial support from this level. And after we get a break below this level, then the full target at 1610 will probably be realized. Also take note that the weekly pivot is at 1651. And that means that the area between the weekly pivot and the yearly R2 pivot at 1655 would be our area of resistance. So any move back into this level will then act as resistance. So if we do manage to break above that, the area of resistance would be at our monthly pivot at 1668, and that is again where we'll meet up with this 4-hour 200 and 100 SMAs. So that would be another very strong area of resistance should we manage to break above that level. And looking now at the Euro USD. Last week saw a breakout and then a retest of this diagonal. This was the overhead diagonal. Rejection happened from this larger diagonal that was initially support and which has now obviously turned resistance, well, at least last week. And of course also the 4-hour 200 SMA. So that got rejected. Then the price went back into this diagonal to retest this breakout area. And currently we are trading above the monthly pivot and also above the weekly pivot. And at this stage, we are looking at a potential sustained move higher towards the weekly R1 pivot at 1.187. That is also where we will face additional resistance from this new diagonal bullish channel that's been forming. Also, we are expecting retests of either one of these levels. That's the weekly and or monthly pivots at 1.179 or 1.178. And depending on when that happens, that could also see another retest of this new lower diagonal that we are seeing in this channel. So just keep a lookout for any price action from this area, as this could either give us a potential opportunity to go long with that target in mind at 1.187. And also, of course, should we break below this area, we would see price move back into this area at 1.175, which is also additional support, but any close below that, and of course, this 100 SMA on the 4-hour, any close below that would be bearish and could see price move lower back towards this perhaps level at 1.168. That is where we find some support. Just having a brief look at our economic calendar for the week. So later today, we have the Bank of England governor speaking. That is at 6 o'clock. Then tomorrow, we have some CPI figures at 2:30. And then again on Wednesday at 2:30. On Thursday, we have our unemployment rate and employment change for Australia. That is at 2:30. And of course, for the USD at 2:30. In the afternoon, and the previous one was in the morning. And then on Friday, we have some retail sales figures at 2:30 again. Moving on to the GBPUSD. Last week saw an early break with price retesting the 4-hour 200 SMA. That then got rejected with price moving down into the 4-hour 100 SMA where it found some support. Then on Friday, it saw another retest of that 4-hour 200 SMA with price then closing above it. Currently, we are trading right above the monthly pivot that is at 1.3. This is this larger black line that we have over here, and also above our weekly pivot at 1.298. We've also formed this new bullish channel now with the resistance now indicated with this blue line, and we can see that we have potential targets at the weekly R1 pivot at 1.311. That is, of course, should we see a sustained move higher and a rally for that level. Also keep in mind that the area of support now becomes this area between 1.3 and 1.298. And just looking at this now, we also have what appears to be a small, well, not very small, but a very flat head and shoulders, with this left shoulder that we see over here, with the head and then the shoulder again, and just projecting that higher. That would then potentially give us a target at, let's just have a quick look, that would potentially give us a target as high as 1.331. Obviously, I'm not saying that's going to play out as soon as this week already, but that is something to keep an eye out for over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Looking now at Australian dollar USD. Price action last week had an initial struggle with this 4-hour 100 SMA, and of course also with this diagonal. So initially price got rejected from this level, and after finding some support, we saw price move into the diagonal, breaking through that, and also breaking through the 4-hour 100 SMA. And price is currently trading above the monthly pivot at 0.719, which is also the same level as our weekly pivot, and also currently trading above the 4-hour 200 SMA that we see here on 0.722. Our initial targets would be the area of our weekly R1 pivot at 0.729. This is also an area of overhead diagonal resistance. I also expect price to probably some stage during this week retest this area of 0.719, as this is now an area of support, and of course also the important levels of being the weekly and monthly pivot. And just also keep in mind that we do have this lower diagonal that has now been established, and any close below that, and especially also below our 4-hour 100 SMA, that we can't really see here, but that's the one that we have on this level at 0.716. Any close below that and below this diagonal will be very bearish and could potentially see a move much lower. We are moving on to the US 100 or NASDAQ 100. Last week saw this rising wedge fail, and we saw price initially break lower and then found some support from our 4-hour 100 SMA, and from there it rallied all the way back above the monthly pivot at 11,500, and that means there's probably quite a few traders now trapped short, especially those who have not honored a stop loss. And what now seem to have emerged is this large inverted head and shoulders, and I'll quickly draw that for you. So you can see we have this left shoulder over here, with this with the head, that's lower move over there, and then our right shoulder at this area over there. And if we do project this higher, we can see that we have a target all the way higher towards the highs from, that should be the highs from August. And it's possible that we could see over the next few weeks, or depending on how aggressive price moves, or rallies higher, we could see a price reach this area between our monthly R1 pivot at 12,358 and that high at 12,460 realized within the next 1 to 3 weeks. Just also notice that for this week at least, we do have some areas of resistance. That would be our weekly R1, R2 pivots with their respective levels at 11,928 and 12,110. And of course, just considering areas of support, at this stage, we have our area of support indicated here in this orange color. That is between the monthly pivot at 11,500 and our weekly pivot at 11,567. So any move back into this area could potentially be an opportunity to get long, but do keep in mind that it close below our 4-hour 200 SMA and below the monthly pivot. That would be this area in between 11,400 and 65 and 11,500. Any close below that, a price action below that would be bearish, as that would take us into this area over here, and that is the area where we will probably meet up with the 4-hour 100 SMA at 11,250, and a close below that could potentially see this this daily 100 SMA being retested as low as. And we are moving on to Brent crude oil. Brent crude last week managed to break above the diagonal, and then initially got rejected from our 4-hour 200 SMA, retested the breakout area and also this yearly USD pivot at 42, also the area where we met up with the 4-hour 100 SMA. From there, it managed to break through the 4-hour 200 SMA, and currently it seems that the area in the crosshairs for a retest is our monthly pivot at 42.55, and this is also the area where it will meet up with the 4-hour 200 SMA again, and hopefully, possibly this time, it would be an area of support. And just considering this inverted head and shoulders that has now been forming, consider that this monthly pivot area is also the neckline, meaning that we could see a move back higher from this area. So just keep an eye out on price action, as a move higher from here could potentially see price move higher towards, into various levels of resistance, but within the eventual target above our monthly R1 pivot at 45.66, and potentially even as high as the highs that we saw in September at 46.50. So that would be in the scenario of a bullish move. However, for the potential scenario of a bearish move from here, should this area be rejected, that's the area of our monthly pivot at 42.55, and should we see price break below the 4-hour 100 SMA and this $42 area at the yearly S2, it's possible that we will see price move lower, and then you could see support at 39.90 being retested once again. And now we are looking at gold. Gold saw some very volatile price movements last week, with a strong rejection of this monthly pivot, as we can see with those two large candles. That took price much lower, back towards this neckline of this W bottom, and that was at 1,875. And from there, we then saw a sustained rally to where price is currently trading and finding some resistance from these two diagonal overhead diagonal levels. So depending on whether price is going to break through this or initially reject from this area, it's worth considering that the new area of support would now be the area between our monthly pivot at 1,905 and the weekly pivot at 1,910. So that would be an area of support. So should a price move back into this area, it could be a potential area to get long. And of course, our targets, should we be able to break above our diagonal once again, would be this weekly R1 pivot at 1,950. And of course, should that also manage to be broken, then an extended target would be at our monthly S1 pivot at 1,968. Also, just considering the scenario where we do reject from this area to the downside with some more bearish price action, we do have this additional support with the new diagonal forming for this bullish move, and probably also we will see some additional support being provided from our 4-hour 100 SMA. So should price break below both of those, I suspect price will find some initial support from this 100 daily SMA area that I've projected on our 4-hour over here. And that could be anywhere between 1,867 to perhaps 1,876. And we are finally concluding this week's analysis with Bitcoin. Bitcoin last week played out very, very closely to the way that we've mentioned in our video. And that is that we mentioned that a break above this initial blue area of overhead diagonal resistance would see the monthly pivot being retested at 10,880, which of course it did. And then we've also mentioned that should we move into this diagonal and that break, we will see a move much higher towards, and we mentioned 11,750. And at this stage, we can see that price is still consolidating, although a break higher is likely at this stage. So our new targets at this stage would be, of course, that weekly R1 pivot at 11,700, with the full target probably sitting quite a bit higher at 11,945, and that is where we'll find some resistance from the monthly R1 pivot. And of course, just worth noting that we do have our weekly pivot sitting at this 11,110 level, and that also coincides with a 50% Fibonacci retracement from that high. And then we also have the area at 11,000, and that is the initial breakout area, and that is also the area we will see a retest of the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement level. So those are just alternative scenarios where we do see price move back to retest these levels. However, at this stage we have seen a bullish break and expecting price to move higher. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Please remember to subscribe, and please let us know if there's anything specific you wanted to discuss, as we just love to hear your feedback. Until next time, this is John Jacobs for RMD Trader. Trade smart and trade successful.